there, how's it going? Get up here. We've covered the creation of the world in the ancient times, the nightmarish invasions from alien creatures, and the monstrous empires. There's a lot to cover in the modern age, since that is the time when the most is written about for the campaign setting, so I'm going to do this in multiple parts to try and spread out the information a little bit more. In this part, I'm going to cover the year negative 3100 YK, all the way up to the year 1 YK and the creation of the Kingdom of Galifar. So, prepare your butts, get comfortable, grab a healthy snack that still has enough flavor to keep you interested, but isn't going to impact your body in a negative way because you still have that girl from work to impress and you really like her, and you think if you get a little bit better shape, maybe she'll notice you and you can ask her out because she'll really like you. And I'm getting a little off topic here. Welcome to the modern age. What sets this age apart is that the core human and demi-human races of the world dominate this era. It's an age of the rise of mortal civilization and huge advancements in knowledge and research. One of the first things of note that I could find in the modern age is the awakening of a creature known as Malian the Great Pine. He's called this because he's literally a pine tree that's been awakened to become sentient. There's no mention how this future coffee table became awakened, whether it was another druid, natural event, or writing error they just decided to stick with. All that is known is that this tree became like a super hippie druid dude. He started his own little druid cult known as the Wardens of the Wood in the Eldeen Reaches. I won't go into the druid organizations, but note that Malian still works as the chief of the self-appointed nature police in the forest and plains into the area even to this day. Next in the timeline is something that really means something in the modern age. In the year negative 2200 YK, the first 3 dragon marks appeared. What are the dragon marks? Well, that's going to require its own video to explain in full. But to briefly explain, there's this special, naturally occurring tattoos that appear on someone's body to indicate that according to the draconic prophecy, you and the people like you are special snowflakes that mean something. I'll go into detail later. In a previous video, I noted the gnomes achieved the 3rd dragon mark, but this is incorrect. Let me explain why. The first 2 dragon marks are the mark of hospitality by the halflings and the mark of shadow by the elves. Around this time, the greedy little elves gained a 2nd dragon mark, the mark of death. I won't go into detail about this mark, but it wasn't a pleasant one. It involved deadly deathful death stuff, and at one point, everyone collectively decided, oh, hell no, and killed every single member of the House of Vol that held it. The emergence of the dragon marks blew the collective minds of the dragons. It was a clear indication of the next step of the draconic prophecy and was like kind of a big deal. The dragons kind of went all Roswell alien on these dragon-marked mortals and started abducting them, studying them, probing them, the works. That's when a new organization arose, Dragons for the Ethical Treatment of Mortals, or though I think they preferred to call themselves the Warders. The Warders were a group of dragons that said treating other sentient, albeit short-lived creatures like this was wrong. So after a century of reckless experimentation, the Warders created the city of Iovicus, where everyone could live in peace and harmony, where no one would be experimented on, everyone could have a full and wonderful life, and no company would abuse loot boxes or overpriced DLC content aimed at children. The city actually worked, well, at least for 2,000 years, but then a human was born with sorcerous powers that actually equaled or even surpassed the dragons, and suddenly the dragons realized their pets had teeth. The city is now a pile of melted rock and metal. Good job, dragons. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the summary of what happened. Maybe that will be for one of my future videos as I focus on the finer details in the history of Eberron. And going back to negative 2000 YK, 2 things happened. The Mark of Healing appeared on the halfling natives of the Talenta Plains, and human beings led by a man named Lazar settled in the islands of what would become the Lazar Principalities. The island settlements were far enough removed that they had almost no contact with the fractioned remnants of the old Dakani Empire. Thus, they were able to secure the area and flourish with almost no resistance. 25 years later, in the year negative 1975 YK, the pirate explorer of Malian started to explore the coasts of Corvair. He sailed around the continent, mapping it with 4 warships and over 1,000 sailors at his disposal. He became known as Malian the Reaver, a vicious pirate lord that mercilessly slaughtered and conquered large amounts of coasts in the southern and eastern shores of Corvair. Although he attacked many races on the continent, he was especially vicious towards the lizard folk, Sahuagin, and kobolds, single-handedly lowering their populations dramatically. Malian clashed with the gnomes, who banded into city-states to protect themselves. They proved tough enough that he set his sights elsewhere instead, because Malian had rediscovered the fallen city of Sharat, one of the greatest set of ruins left by the now fallen Dakani Empire. After 25 years of warfare and exploration, Malian settled permanently in the ruins and commanded his forces to reshape the ruins into a new city, the city of Sharat, which means blade in the goblin tongue. His superstitious nature made him seal off large sections of the ruins to keep any restless spirits of the past at bay. These seals were more important than he realized and protected him from something far worse than restless spirits. But that's a tale for another time. Sharat became a city fortress that remained intact for nearly 6 centuries, or when it was finally taken by Bregor, first king. The city was then renamed to Sharn for reasons, and over the centuries would flourish to become the world's largest and greatest city, something I would surely make a video on in the future. Okay, let's jump back to where we left off in the timeline. Now we're in the year negative 1800 YK, and the gnomes gained the mark of scribing. I've delved further into this in my gnome video, and if you haven't watched my gnome video, then 2 things. Firstly, I'm going to get an angry moose to gut punch you. And secondly, go watch the video. A couple of 100 years ago, we're now in the year negative 1600 YK. This is a pretty busy century actually. The humans of Karnath gain the dragon mark of the Sentinel, which boosts their military prowess even further. The elves and the dragons, which had been at conflict with each other till this point, suddenly became super awesome friends and realized the mark of death is icky and decide to commit genocide against the House of Vol. Friendship goals. Anywho, the entire House of Vol is slaughtered. Men, women, children, pet parakeets, you name it, killed, all of them. But I mean, it's the House of Death, so killing them didn't entirely have the effect they imagined, because now a new Lich Queen named Lady Vol has been created in her death, and man, she's pissed. Like John Wick just after they killed his puppy level of pissed. Possibly because they really did kill her puppy. It's also at this time that House Fjarlund decides it hates the HOA of the Arenal and relocates to the continent of Corvair. Around the year negative 1500 YK, the last death rattle of the once great and powerful Dakani Empire that had ended literally thousands of years ago finally happens, as the humans spread into the central continent and begin slaughtering and pushing back the final goblinoids. The last few pockets of advanced goblinoid civilization on the surface of Corvair finally fall. Although there's still a remnant of the Dakani left, but I think that's also for a future video. It's also at this time that the mark of making appears in the humans of Kyrie, and the mark of warding appears among the dwarves of the Maror Holds. Negative 1400 YK is the year King Bregor orders Sharat destroyed due to the city not kneeling before him, a siege that lasts a full decade before it's taken and renamed to Sharn. Fast forwarding a few centuries, it's now negative 1000 YK. Karn the Conqueror establishes Karnath and unsuccessfully attempts to conquer the other core continental human settlements. Also at this time, the Mark of Storms appears among the Korovar, or half-elves. 100 years later, the Mark of Passage appears among the humans of Onder. Sometime in the negative 800s, renegade quarry dream creatures were fleeing from something called the Dreaming Dark. I won't go into too much detail about this, as that is a topic that needs its own video, but the leader of this good-aligned group of dream creatures called Tarati contacted an Adaran monk and pleaded for his help. The monk saw their goodness and got the entire monastery to merge with the new dream creatures, turning themselves into a new race called the Kailash Star, where they take shelter in Adar at around negative 800 YK. The Kailash Star would slowly begin to spread to other places, including Corvair from this point on, although they are few in number even in modern day. At the same time, the mark of handling appears to humans in the Eldine reaches of Corvair. Fast forward a few centuries, we're now at negative 500 YK. The evil dream creatures known as the Quarry begin their conquest of the continent of Sarlona. A new wave of humans flee the continent and come to settle on Corvair. The mark of detection appears among the Koravar of Breland, and the dragon-marked houses begin what is known as the War of the Mark. It's now that they decide the mixed marks and aberrant marks are dangerous and corrupt. They attempt to eradicate holders of the marks, something that people still have mixed feelings about to this day. The War of the Mark lasts for 7 years and culminates in Lord Tarkanan and the Lady of Plague uniting those with the aberrant dragon marks, and in the last act of defiance causing great and almost total destruction in the city of Sharn. It's at this point that Lord Hadran Dakanath unifies the dragon-marked houses and creates what is known as the 12. In the year -302 YK, the nation of Riedra on Salona is unified. The Quarry forcefully possess the leaders and upper class of the society. They rule it through a mixture of a brainwashed public and great power. In -200 YK, the city made by the warders to protect the guided mortals called Iovicus was destroyed. The gold dragon Anarlisha and a dozen other dragons led the remaining survivors to create a new city with blackjack and hookers. This city was to be called Iolakar, the City of Knowledge. There's almost a century and a half of very little happening. Then in the year -45 YK, someone very important was born.
Nope. Chuck Testa.
Galifar Irwirnan is born in the city of Korth on Karnath. Only 3 years after his birth, the Border Wars begin, a large war that involves the 5 core human nations of Corvair. Most likely the warfare of this time shaped the perceptions of young Galifar, helping to guide him for what he would do later in life. In the year -24 YK, Galifar assumes rulership of Karnath as its king. During the next decade, he speaks of uniting the central nations of Corvair. In -14 YK, the campaign to unite the 5 kingdoms officially begins. Although some military action is required in this campaign, the majority of King Galifar's tactics involve diplomacy and winning the hearts of the populations of Corvair, something he's been building up for years by this point. During this time, in -7 YK, King Galifar makes a deal with the dragon-marked houses. They will be granted a politically neutral and immune status in return for their support for his unification campaign. Since the houses already have so much power, this is a big win for the king. In -2 YK, the Mark of Finding appears among the half-orcs of the Shadow Marches and is discovered by the gnomes. Finally, in what is now known as 1 YK, or the first year of the king, King Galifar and his children of Kyrie, Karn, Thrain, Onder, and Bray unify the kingdoms of Corvair into the kingdom of Galifar. Each of his children are assigned an area as a governor, and the rule that the eldest will take the throne upon the king or queen's abdication or death was to become law. Okay, so there's the first part of the modern age and how the modern world was shaped. We're not done yet, however, as we still have almost 1,000 years of modern age to cover. Years of incredible advancement, terrible strife, and a war so terrifying it would scar the world forever. I hope you learned a little about this era for your Eberron campaigns. I really love this setting and think the writers did an awesome job. Have a good one, eh?
Well, hey there. If you want to check out more content from me or even see some live gaming action, check out my links to the Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and YouTube below, eh? Also, if you're a content creator looking for help with like graphics and things, you know, like animated alerts and stinger transitions, well, check out the links to sign up for your chance for me to help you out for free. I've done this stuff professionally for years, and to date I've helped out a lot of streamers and content creators with, you know, like overlays, logos, basically anything they need. What's the catch? Well, I mean, there is none. I give out these services for free, but stream the progress and make a community around it. In turn, this sort of gets me recognition, subs, and donations. Yeah, it's kind of a win-win, eh? So check it out and maybe you can get some help from your new Canuck buddy. Have a good one, eh?